Hello! The International Booker Prize shortlist has just been announced. This is an award which seeks to honor the best books of fiction translated into English and published in the UK or Ireland in the past year. And these are the 6 books on this year's list. Quite a surprising group. I'm going to go through and discuss each of these titles individually. There are 3 from Europe, 2 from South America, and 1 from East Asia. And I've not been following this prize season very closely because when the long list was announced, I'd already been following a number of other book prizes. There were many other new books that I wanted to read, and I was feeling a bit overwhelmed, but I am back on board, and I'm quite keen on reading most, if not all, of these books before the winner is announced. So I'm going to go through and discuss them, I think, in order of preference that I'm interested in them. So first, there is the novel Kairos, and this is set in Germany in the mid-80s. It follows a young woman who meets an older man and how they engage in an affair, and it follows their relationship, but also transformations of the politics in the country at that time. And I've read a book by Jenny Erpenbeck before and loved it, and I've been wanting to read more of her fiction. I've been meaning to read this ever since it came out, so this is finally giving me the push to get to it, and I've heard really great things about it. Now next, I think I would read Crooked Plow. This is a Brazilian novel, and I had started this last year, but then I got distracted by other books, even though I was enjoying it, and I kept meaning to go back to it and hadn't yet. So again, this is another great excuse to finally get to this novel. This book blends both realism and kind of fantasy. The story begins with 2 sisters that discover this kind of magical knife under a bed, and one of them uses it to slice her tongue, and then this silences her. And so it's following their stories, but also how the stories of this working class neighborhood in Brazil, and how slavery only had ended a few generations ago, and so following these characters' lives. And this novel has been so well regarded, and I'm really looking forward to reading it. Next, I think I'm most eager to read The Details, which I hadn't heard of before this prize. This is a Swedish novel following an individual, I think an unnamed narrator, who comes across a copy of Paul Auster's New York trilogy and finds an inscription in there. And this kind of takes this woman back to a period of time and different people that she were, both men and women, that she was having an affair with, and looking at her life, and is examining this way of that literature influences our lives, and physical books themselves become so much a part of our lives. And this is something that obviously I'll be able to sympathize with so much. And Paul Auster is an author that I read a lot early on in my life and was very influenced by. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays into the story, but also as this kind of celebration of literature, like as an integral part of our lives, and how books can connect us to memories of the past. I think this sounds so good. Next, I'm quite keen to read Not a River, because there's the description of this is quite vague. This is an Argentinian novel, and it's about 3 men that go fishing on a river, and how their lives are intruded upon by both the locals that are living there and the conflicts that they come into with them, but also with people or figures or beings that might not be alive. So I think it's sort of also a blend of kind of realism and the fantastical in that way. And yeah, even though the when you just read the description of this book at the back, it isn't it sounds not too specific. I've heard really great things about this novel and looking forward to reading it. It's published by Charco Press, who have really great taste in literature, and so yeah, I think it sounds really good. Next, I am Also quite keen to read, although I was quite ambivalent about whether I wanted to get to it or not. Matter 210, which is a South Korean novel following a working class family over multiple generations from Japanese occupation to very recent times, and following the lives of these individuals and this family, and Deborah Smith, who was the winner of the very first modern iteration of the International Booker Prize. Deborah Smith says that of Hwang Sok-yong's work that it's a powerful voice for society's marginalized. And I have read his novel At Dusk, which I found really beautiful and poetic and powerful, but this is a quite long novel, and I've heard very mixed things about it, so I wasn't really sure if I wanted to read it, but if I find the time, I do want to get to it now, and it does sound like a really good story. I do love a good family saga. And then there is What I'd Rather Not Think About. So just based on the description of this book, I thought I'd rather not read What I'd Rather Not Think About. Very silly to make that joke. But just because the story sounds like a bit generic, but when I said that this was probably the one that I was least interested in, I had a number of comments of people saying that this is a really good book. And so it follows an individual who's a twin, and their twin has committed suicide, and so it's following that grief and that sense of melancholy. But I've also heard that this blends in like a lot of comic elements, so like balances that tragic comic sense of life. And so I think it's a fairly short book too. So I would now, I think, be quite keen to read and think about What I'd Rather Not Think About now that it is on the International Booker shortlist. So those are all of the books, but let me know, have you read any of these books? Do you recommend them? What do you think about them? And what do you think about the list as a whole? Because I had dipped my toe a bit into reading some of the long list, and I have read one and a bit of books on the long list, which didn't make the shortlist. So just this morning, actually, I finished reading White Nights, which is a collection of short stories from Poland, and written by an author who's also a poet. So this is beautifully written, but also these stories are interconnected because a lot of the characters overlap between the stories, and it's basically focusing on a Polish small rural town that's in the mountains, and following the lives of a number of individuals, of tragedies, of some of them that die, of their relationship conflicts, and people who are left for other people. And I found it such a complex kind of guessing game, or of a game of connecting the relationships and all these different individuals in this town. And I started making this list of all of the different characters and their relationships to each other, and which I know is slightly disruptive of the reading process, but also I found it so valuable. It's oh yeah, that's that character, and that's how they connect with that other character. And I've seen also so much praise of this book. It's quite surprising it didn't make this year's shortlist, but I loved reading this collection. I just found it really beautiful, really immersive, the way it represents their lives, but also the natural environment around them and portraying that. I just had this vision of a very full raspberry bush from one story in this book. I'd also started reading the House on Via Gemito, which is following a family, a son writing about his father who had artistic aspirations and who felt that his family was getting in the way of his creative life, and was very abusive towards his mother, but and the rest of his family. So following that, and I was interested in this story, and I'm getting a bit into it, but then it started to feel a bit repetitive, so I sort of set it aside for the time being. I might go back to it because I have heard really great things about it, of people who have finished reading the book and say that it's really worthwhile going to the very end. It's quite a long novel too. So yeah, I'll be interested to see how the story of this family in Naples plays out over time, and do hope to get back to it. There are also some books on that were long listed that didn't make the short list that I would quite like to read, like Sympatia and Undiscovered. I'm quite keen on those as well. But yeah, those are the books on the list, and that is my kind of tentative reading plan. I'm not going to lock myself into reading any particular books or in any particular order, but that's my order for the time being, that I want to read these books. But yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts about this short list, what you're interested in reading, what you think about the list as a whole. And yeah, let me know all about that in the comments below, and I will speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.